Is the 1022 the best bug out rifle? We're going to talk about it today, guys, for two reasons. The first one being that when I was having coffee yesterday morning, a very popular YouTuber that I follow did a video about his 1022s and saying that, in his opinion, it's the best bug out rifle. And guys, I used to think the same thing before a situation really changed my opinion on it. And I'm not going to say, though, that this is not the ideal bug out rifle for everybody. I don't think it's smart to make blanket statements like that. I think for some people it makes sense, so we'll get into that. The second reason I want to talk about this is that there's just a ridiculous number of survivalists and preppers out there that have this same perspective, that the 1022 is going to be their primary when they bug out in the big shit hit the fan that's coming down the pipe. Now, obviously, guys, it kind of goes without being said, but the last thing you want to do is bug out. I just want to make sure that everybody keeps that in mind. You should be doing everything in your power right now to make sure that you're in the right place you need to be when everything kicks off. That's what you want to do. And you want to be prepped. You want to have your food and your water stores all ready to go. You always want to make sure you have your bug out kit as well. But this is not insurance. Bugging out is not insurance for you, okay? Your plan to bug out, if that's all you have, it's not insurance. It's, oh shit, I'm absolutely totally freaking screwed. I'm going to go out in the woods and try to survive. And anyone who's actually done it for long periods of time like I have knows you're probably going to die doing that, okay? So, you know, I just want to throw that out there. Bugging out is the last thing you want to have to do. Now, let's talk about why so many people love the 1022 and are planning on bugging out with it. And this one is cleared, by the way. You guys can tell I'm a fan. And this isn't the only one we own. I have literally put tens of thousands of animals in the freaking dirt with the 1022. And a lot of them got turned into poop, guys. I'm not the dude that likes to go out and shoot animals for fun. I shoot them because A, I'm going to eat them, or I shoot them because B, they're causing some very serious damage to either my property, my livestock, whatever it is, something like that, and I have to deal with it. So I have used the shit out of this platform. As a matter of fact, I used to spend my Saturdays when I lived at a different place at a different time getting out in the BLM in my Jeep. I just put it in second gear and just let it idle its way down the dirt roads with my 1022 hanging out the window, much like I am right now. And I would shoot whatever edible critters I saw out there, and I did it almost every weekend, and I did it for a long time. And then I also took 1022s on the road with me when I was deep off grid out in the boonies. And that brings me to a situation I found myself in that changed my perspective. A lot of us that have a lot of love for this platform, much like the YouTuber I'm talking about, grew up shooting squirrels and coons and stuff like that, and just kind of having a cheap, lightweight, durable little rifle that could get the job done, you know? And so when we think about bugging out, we go, oh, a 1022 would be ideal for that. There's not a lot of report. 22 long rifle is affordable. It's not that heavy. We're talking 4 grams per 40 grainer. So you can carry roughly, 111, 112 cartridges per pound. You know, I know a lot of guys are like, oh, I'm going to hump thousands of rounds of this shit out there. You know, you're probably not. You might for like 10 miles, and then you might change your mind depending on how far you got to go. But, you know, these are also pretty capable. I think there's a lot of myths about how worthless 22 long rifle is when it comes to dealing with two-legged predators. And dudes, if this little thing is going 1,000 feet per second or more, which is not hard to do out of this platform, you're looking at 14 plus inches of penetration. Not really any expansion, and you really got to put the bullet right where it needs to go. But as the saying goes, guys, shot placement trumps all other metrics, right? So it's still very capable, and there's a lot of things in North America that you could whack with this little bullet if your shot placement is right on the money. The 10-round rotary mags are great. This is the one off my original first 1022, and it's still working. There's been so many damn rounds through this magazine, like who knows how many it's gone through, and it still works just fine. Just a, pretty reliable, cheap beater gun. So it makes sense. And a lot of us, with our experience using the rifle, it makes sense as to why we would choose it for a bug out rifle. Let me go back probably 15 years. I used to blog under a different name that's on my YouTube and my TikTok channels now. And yes, it was about survival and prepping and stuff like that. And in one of my blogs, I talked about how the 1022 was my chosen long gun for bugging out. And I chose to bug out with a sidearm as well back then, which was going to be a 357 mag with a 6-inch barrel, so I could take big game out to 100 yards if I did my part. My thought process back then was you either go with this option and a capable sidearm, or you go with a rifle and a rifle cartridge that's going to be able to reach out, hundreds of yards to take deer, 300 yards minimum. And then you go with a 22 long rifle sidearm so you can hunt small game. And I've heard a lot of YouTubers, a lot of guys that are gun tubers that aren't really survivalists and preppers that have said the same thing. Oh, a 22 long rifle handgun, if you're bugging out or shit hit the fan, is going to help put a lot of meat on the table for you. Let me ask you guys a question. How many of you have actually gone out there and hunted with 22 long rifle handguns to feed your family? I'm going to tell you that I have done it. As a matter of fact, I've done the shit out of it. I do it for fun because it's challenging. I like to go after jackrabbits. That's my preferred game, and try to hit them while they're running. But I've been pretty successful with it. But is it the way to go? Is it efficient? That's what we really need to be thinking about, guys, because you got to think about it, especially if you're bugging out. Every single pound of shit you're carrying that is not part of the 20% that's going to produce 80% of the results for you is stupid. It's just not efficient. We really want to focus on all of our gear. We want to make sure it's the stuff you're going to be using every day. The stuff that's really going to produce a lot of results for you. 80% of the results are produced by 20% of your kit. You take that stuff, double up on some of it, you know what I'm saying? Like redundancies, that kind of thing. My opinion of it is that a lot of the people that are telling you a 22 long rifle handgun and shit hit the fan so you can take advantage of small game hunting have never actually gotten out there and had to feed themselves regularly while thinking about shit hit the fan. Okay? While thinking about it. Because what's going to outwork a 22 handgun all the time? This is going to outwork a 22 handgun all the time. What's going to outwork this? You know what's going to outwork this? Snares, traps, fish traps, trot lines. There are a lot of ways to provide food for your family without being out there and actively working to attain that food. If you've got a 1022 and you're bugging out with it and your plan is to hunt small game all the time, how much small game does it take to feed your family in shit hit the fan? Let's say you have a family of 4. You got 2 kids and your wife. And you guys are bugged out. You're running out of food. And you're going to go out and hunt gray squirrels all day to feed your family. How many gray squirrels is it going to take to provide enough calories so that your family is not rapidly dropping weight? Well, for one, I'm going to tell you, and you probably know this if you've hunted gray squirrels, that there's a time of the year when they're on the fattier side and there's a time of year when they're not. And this also depends on where you live. Out here, not here specifically, but in the place you can find gray squirrels not far from here, places, they don't really get all that big. They eventually do, but they don't grow rapidly like they do in other areas of the country. So we're probably looking at 10 to 15 gray squirrels to feed 4 people. And this is going to depend on the size of these people, their activity level, and all that other shit as well, right? If you live in a part of the country where these things get nice, big, and fat, and it's the right time of year, well, you probably could hunt anywhere from 6 to 8 gray squirrels to keep your family fed. But guess what? You're not a kid anymore that's out there shooting squirrels for fun and shooting coons for fun. You're now in a situation where every single report, no matter how quiet it is, could draw attention. Not to mention that you're out there actively trying to hunt. And this means covering ground, guys. That's what it means. So now you're walking around, which is exposing yourself, because you're not out there hunting gray squirrels at night, right, dudes? You're out there doing it during the daytime. And how many shots is it going to take you to take out 12 gray squirrels? How many shots? Be honest with yourself. Be real about it. For me, I'm a really, really good shot. It's probably going to take me 13, maybe 14. If I'm really being careful, I could probably get it done in 12. But at the same time, it's like, you know, now you're going to miss opportunities, right? Because you didn't take those quick shots that weren't like 100%. And now you're out there doing it for even longer. Does that make sense to you? Is that being efficient? Could you spend your time doing smarter things like stockpiling wood for the winter to get your family through the freezing temps you're going to have to deal with? Absolutely, right? So how smart is this now? How much sense does this really make? Let me tell you guys a little story here that really changed my perspective on this platform when it comes to an ideal bug out rifle. It was me, my wife, and 2 kids, and we ended up in a certain state that's in the southern half of the U.S. for the winter, and we ended up in a very remote but very cool spot to camp, and we spent 4 months down there with no reprovisioning. So what we brought with us was what we had, and when it came to meat, because of the limited space we had to store it, which was basically, think of a refrigerator with the little freezer in the top of it in a truck camper. That's what we were rocking, okay? And what we found was that if we bought a number of pounds of bacon, divvied them all up into tiny Ziploc bags and stuffed them in that freezer, we had enough bacon in each bag to pull it out and cook it with a goose or cook it with a duck or drape a squirrel in it, whatever, when we were cooking. So that's the way we rocked it. That's really the only meat we brought out there with us. Because why? Well, Efficient in the Field was going to provide all the meat we needed. Now, we were in an area where game was pretty scarce, but I still had a lot of confidence in my ability to get this done because I'd hunted deserts for years prior to this. Well, we get out there, guys, and I'm a good hunter. I'm a good shot, and I was hunting barefoot. I would go out 6 to 8 miles and come back 6 to 8 miles. I would either do this in the morning or before sundown, oftentimes coming back after dark, and sometimes I'd do it twice a day. Well, after 4 months of this, guys, I lost probably 15 to 20 pounds. I was beginning to smell like ammonia because my body was catabolizing its muscle to feed itself. And you know what? If you're a man and you put your family in that situation, you know what you do? You take the hit. Your kids don't suffer for it. So the kids ate fine, and they never knew. They didn't really realize how difficult it had become. But that was 4 months, guys. And I'll tell you what, I have spent a lot of time out in these places. This was 11 years ago, and I have learned a lot since then. But I thought about this. I thought about it over and over and over again, and I was like, this is not the way to go. It's not the way to go. I would have been better off with a higher caliber rifle that I could have used to take big game at 300-400 yards. That would have been far superior to this. And snaring, trapping fish, and doing all of that. So I had to redirect my own attentions in this way, and I had to change the way I think about it. And I think a lot of survivalists and preppers that haven't really tried to feed their family with this for an extended period of time, they think that this is a great tool to get the job done. And I'm here to tell you that it's probably not. Now, is that the case for everybody? No, I'm going to say that it's not. There's a lot of people that live in the eastern half of the U.S. where there's quite a bit more game. I prefer the western half of the U.S. You want to know why? It's less populated, guys, unless you're around like highly populated areas, which I'm not. There's also less game out here. That's my personal experience. Not everywhere. There's places out here where there's a lot of game, and there's places where there's not. But if you're on the eastern half of the U.S., generally speaking, it's not going to be as hard to hunt as it is here. Now, at the same time, constant reports. If you're in a state that, hasn't completely shit all over your second, well, maybe you can purchase a suppressor, and that will definitely lower the report. But still think about the time spent. Does it make sense? Is it smarter to check a snare line for rabbits for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening? You're damn right it is. You're damn right it is, guys. It's just hard to make this argument once you really know. Okay? So I'm not trying to piss people off. I want as many of you guys to make it through shit hit the fan as possible. And so I'm letting you know, you need to really revisit this if this is your plan. And if you're someone that thinks that this is the ideal bug out tool, you probably need to start focusing on your snaring and your fish trapping. Okay, you need to diversify your methods. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, dudes. And if you're in a family of 4 and you're bugging out, yeah, have somebody bring a 1022. That's what we would probably do. It's definitely not towards the top when it comes to choices, but we have spoken a little bit to some of the virtues of this little cartridge, and one of them ones I didn't mention is that it's all over the damn place. So bugging out with a lightweight rifle like this Thompson Center TCR 22, it can make sense. There's places it can make sense, guys, but if you're lone wolfing it, is this the long gun you want to bring with you? Let's take a couple minutes to talk about where the 1022 might make sense for SHTF. And I'm going to tell you that I don't think it's for people bugging out. I really don't, despite the fact that this ammunition is so lightweight. Let's talk about it real quick. 4 grams per 40 grain cartridge of 22 long rifle compared to 12 grams for a 5.56 NATO cartridge, right? So 5.56 NATO weighs 3 times as much. But dudes, it easily gets 10 to 15 times as much work done as this little cartridge here. So is it really worth the wait? And we talked about squirrel hunting, right? We talked about that. You can take a deer, a pronghorn antelope, a much larger animal with 1 round of 5.56 NATO that weighed 12 grams versus 10 squirrels. Let's say you have to shoot 10 squirrels to feed your family with these, and you get them all done in one shot. That's 30 grams worth of ammunition you expended, where 1 round of 5.56 NATO can feed your entire family for 2 weeks if you can do your part. Okay? That's why I feel that the benefits to this cartridge when it comes to cost and weight, they're just not really there to me anymore. They're really not. 5.56 NATO is, and I'm not even a big fan of 5.56 NATO, but it's just so much more capable than this cartridge, guys. Where this does make sense to me is for preppers that live in very remote places, much like me. I can get out here with this little rifle and shit hit the fan and walk over the pond and snipe some geese or some ducks if I wanted to. And is anybody going to hear me? Maybe. Just because my nearest neighbor is 3 miles away right now doesn't mean that in shit hit the fan, there won't be somebody 300 yards away that I didn't know was there. And now they're going to hear me take these shots, and it's going to attract their attention. And you're going to say, well, efficient in the field, they're going to hear your 5.56 at, half a mile, a mile. It all depends, right, guys? Depends on how the sound bounces off the terrain. Are there a lot of trees that soak it up? Things to consider, okay? Well, yeah, they're going to hear the 5.56 more, but I can kill one large animal with the 5.56 round that's going to feed my family for weeks but I'll be out hunting with this every day. Okay, so you just got to weigh it, guys. You got to weigh it. I really just think, though, if you're bugging out, man, I don't think this is the best option. I think it makes way more sense for preppers. I do think it makes sense to a degree with families that have kids. You know, this thing, super low recoil, low report, and it's a great training tool, obviously. You know, so pre-SHTF, I mean, this is just a great tool to have. Get your kids trained up on it, then get a lot of rounds down range and put in a little bit of time with them on a 5.56. They're going to be way more effective, you know. So I feel like this rifle shines to me. Pre-shit hit the fan to hunt for fun. It is a training tool. I really think that's where it's at. That's it, pimps. I think I made my point. Make sure you like the video, share it. Share it with someone who's planning on bugging out with a 10-22. Subscribe to the channel. I have a lot more content coming down the pipe, such as a discussion about the 22 long rifle, where it makes sense, where it doesn't, and why so many people think it's the ultimate survivalist and prepper choice, and they're usually wrong. We're going to get into that as well. Check out my Patreon link in the description if you like what I'm doing and want to help support the channel. I also have tons of extra content on there. I'll let y'all go. I'll see you in the next video.